The mystery of the tree of knowledge of good and evil has sparked many questions among rational minds seeking to understand its significance. Some have chosen to view the tree of knowledge as merely an allegory and not a literal tree. But this is a mistake. The tree of knowledge as taught by Scripture was a literal tree that had information stored within its fibers and thus used to impart knowledge through its fruits. But the natural question arises, if it imparts knowledge, why was it forbidden? Is not knowledge about good and evil a good thing? What's the origin of this tree? How did it store the knowledge of good and evil within itself? Unraveling the answers to these questions not only uncovers the secrets of the tree, but also reveals a deeper link between the celestial world and the profound story of redemption. Let's journey back to the origins of this profound knowledge and uncover the truths it holds. We will have to go hundreds of eons in the past before Earth was created. As time progressed, an artificial planet emerged within the celestial community known as Memra. This planetary entity functioned as a repository, housing the complete history of numerous worlds and the ongoing events in Zion. Serving as a comprehensive repository of wisdom, Memra utilized an array of advanced techniques to preserve records, including written texts, stone engravings, digital formats, cloud storage, watery nanotechnology, and DNA cellular coding. Within Memra, they cultivated fruits and trees that acted as biological reservoirs of historical knowledge. Consuming the fruit from these trees facilitated the transmission of encoded information through the bloodstream, resulting in vivid historical visions and insights. This rapid data absorption technique through fruit consumption was just one of the many methods employed by Memra, which boasted various channels tailored for expeditious data downloads, catering to diverse worlds and alien civilizations. Hence, Memra's informational reserves extended beyond the traditional concept of a single tree of knowledge, encompassing elements such as the water, rocks, sand, and a plethora of other materials, all infused with valuable data. The celestial authorities governing the cosmic heavens saw the wisdom in establishing centralized planetary libraries throughout the vast expanse of space. Their aim was to provide other worlds with the opportunity to learn about their own realities, granting each world a share of the collective wisdom amassed by the heavens and millions of other worlds. This initiative was intended to equip young budding worlds with knowledge to help them keep pace with the progress of the broader celestial society. To achieve this, they cultivated various plant and tree species imbued with information in their fibers. While these trees didn't contain a comprehensive record of all knowledge, they held sufficient information to enlighten individuals about the history of their local galaxies. Access to the fruit of these trees, rich in knowledge, was restricted to the celestial governors, diplomats, and kings once they had reached a certain level of maturity. Upon a world's graduation in the University of Life, its citizens were granted the privilege of partaking in the fruit of the tree of knowledge. However, this process became more complex following the introduction of sin into the annals of history. A newly formulated philosophy leading the mind toward a state of oblivion was faithfully preserved within libraries of planet Memra. Consequently, any governor consuming the fruit of this planet would uncover the darker aspects of celestial history, resulting in a loss of innocence. In response, the high courts of heaven decreed that only those who had withstood rigorous testing, spanning several millennia, could partake of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. While several planets qualified for this consumption, others were deemed ineligible. Younger planets, lacking substantial experience, were prohibited from partaking in the tree of knowledge of good and evil until they proved their worthiness. Heaven had witnessed the disastrous effects of young innocent celestials eating of the tree of knowledge of good and evil prematurely. They saw these angels become spoiled with confusion and frustration. After careful observation, they discerned that there existed a specific age group and maturity level that could safely consume the tree's knowledge without succumbing to corruption. Angels who had lived for eons and had reached full maturity were able to partake of the tree without falling into rebellion. Conversely, those who were relatively young and inexperienced became tainted by evil questionings that arose upon consuming the tree's knowledge. The chances of resolving the questions from an evil mind at a tender age were slimmer, resulting in a small percentage of angels becoming corrupted by the premature exposure to vast knowledge about evil. Based on this scientific understanding, the legislations of the heavenly councils instated a temporary prohibition on consuming the tree of knowledge until maturity was attained by a new world. However, the celestial government of heaven mandated the presence of a tree of knowledge from the nearest library on every planet, located light years away from heaven. For the sake of complete transparency, historical records were required to portray both the positive and negative events that transpired in the annals of celestial history. To establish a connection between heaven and all the worlds harboring intelligent life, an embassy was to be set up on each planet, serving as neutral ground for celestial beings and operating under the jurisdiction of heavenly intergalactic law. Consequently, it became a vital aspect of Zion's government on each planet to ensure that its inhabitants were guided in their quest to emulate celestial virtues. As above, so below. However, there was one particular stain in heaven's history that they aimed to prevent any other world from replicating: the chapters of evil within heaven. As a precautionary measure, it was deemed necessary to place a tree of knowledge of good and evil within each embassy. Nonetheless, before partaking of the fruit, one had to achieve a certain level of maturity. The councils in every sector of the universe recognized the fairness of this approach. Even in the event that a celestial governor temporarily prohibited one of their worlds from consuming the tree of knowledge, it was considered just to at least provide that world with the option to partake. The wise council recognized the necessity of maintaining a delicate equilibrium between divine transparency and divine privacy, mirroring the balance between freedom and constraints. Certain information, deemed too overwhelming for certain beings, was thus declared publicly forbidden by the higher powers, grounded in the principle of brotherly love. The foundation of heaven's governance lies in love and the aspiration for the well-being of all living creatures, enabling them to flourish in their intended manner. Functioning as elder siblings in creation, entrusted by the Almighty Father, they oversee younger worlds, cautioning them about potential pitfalls and imparting knowledge that they themselves acquired through discovery. Hence, it becomes imperative to issue warnings and guidelines concerning the tree of knowledge, ensuring that new worlds are provided with a fair chance to choose the path leading to prosperity. When God plans the creation of a new world, the Archangel Michael notifies the High Council, who subsequently relay the details to the planning committee. On the agrarian planet Memra, farmers specifically designate a tree of knowledge tailored for the particular world, meticulously ensuring its compatibility. Once the tree reaches full maturity, it is harvested and transported to a mobile island, where it joins the complementary tree of life. Celestial transporters then maneuver the island to its intended destination. Upon the completion of a new world by Michael, the King of Celestials, the planet is crowned with the garden and embassy of heaven. The alpha creatures fashioned by the king for that world are summoned to meet him there. At the embassy, God explains to the infant leaders of that planet the first grand mission. There he would meet with them every so often, until they are mature enough to operate independently. Angels and alien celestials would also use the Garden of Edens as a landing pad to come to visit that new world and help raise that world as their older galactic siblings. After some eons of maturity, the society of that world are honored at their local galactic conference to receive global rewards upon their graduation. On that day, they will be given right to eat of the tree of knowledge of good and evil. By then, it will be assumed that that society's experience has inoculated them enough to partake of the tree of knowledge. A great feast is prepared with the fruits of paradise from other sister worlds. At that welcome table, the graduates will feast on wine of history and not get dizzy with the overwhelming questions of the fall. The bite of this fruit will signify the beginning of adulthood among the cosmic society. At that point, the people of that world can take on greater occupations reserved for the elite class of celestials that rule over many worlds. At that stage of responsibility, these ascended beings are called gods because their wisdom and strength are vastly greater than average being. Though many civilizations underneath them may perceive them as gods from their limited vantage point, in the presence of Michael the Christ, they diminish into insignificance like mere dust floating in the air. The hierarchy of godhood culminates in Christ, the Most High God. Because these elevated beings would have knowledge of the history of good and evil, this qualifies them to be judges and councilmen which appear to be like gods. This is why Lucifer through the serpent told Eve that the reason God didn't want mankind to eat of the tree of knowledge is because they would become as gods. This was partly true. They would become as gods in sense of judges and rulers knowing good and evil. However, the lie from Lucifer was the suggestion that the Most High God was threatened by this. He has no problem sharing his responsibilities and powers with his creation. In fact, God wanted all his creatures to eat the tree of knowledge and become like him. But he didn't want them to eat it when they weren't ready. It's necessary for his creatures to first take the hero's journey before becoming a god. Through the hero's journey, a creature will be disciplined and humble enough to be able to sit on thrones like a god without letting it get to their heads. These governors who earn the privilege of consuming the tree of knowledge of good and evil become a walking well of knowledge for their corner of the universe. They will be enlightened enough to guide their village of worlds through perplexing mysteries throughout time and space. And through their experience they will add another branch of knowledge in the tree of knowledge of good. And the wealth of knowledge gained from the odyssey of worlds under enlightened leadership of their governors will be brought to planet Memra as the fertilizer for the next generation of trees of knowledge to grow. And the cycle repeats itself in an ever-compounding knowledge, expressing itself in the sprouting branches in each of the trees of throughout the farmland of Memra. As God's creatures expand throughout the universe, the trees glow with growth for the nourishment of the next generation. In the ever-growing orchard of celestial wisdom, the continuous cultivation of wisdom mirror the tree branches reaching ever higher, seeking the light that grants sustenance. With each step taken, celestial beings embark on a profound journey to ascend to the higher echelons of comprehension. Each level of understanding becomes a stepping stone, drawing them nearer to the Most High God. Just as a tree's branches yearn for the sun's nurturing rays, the celestial quest for enlightenment and insight is an ascent towards a brighter, deeper connection with the divine. Through this celestial odyssey, the journey toward higher elevations of understanding, God nourishes the very roots of the cosmic trees of knowledge. As the universal civilizations branches out to the endless realms of time and space, we will forever know that this is life eternal. To know God and Jesus the Christ, the divine tree of knowledge.